Hello, my name is Lola, and I'm going to react to Old Crash Twinsanity by Caddicarus. This is apparently when Crash Bandicoot started going downhill. I don't know why. So, let's see what Caddy has to say about it. If you want to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. I just do this for fun. Here we go.
Crashes bomb. Crashes bomb.
Crashes bomb.
Crashes bomb.
Crash, I don't want to wear those tassels! Oh, thank God. Oh, it was only a dream. Haven't slept in days. His cheeks are always just there. In my face. I just need to carry on with Bandicoot Month, and hopefully I'll stay far away from any kind of Bandicoot nether region. Crash Twinsanity. Perfect!
Why would they put this in this?
No. Crash Twinsanity. Technically Crash Bandicoot 5 since it takes place straight after Wrath of Cortex. What the hell can you say about this one? I mean, it's such a crazy concept in the first place. Oh, Crash and Cortex trying to work together. But they can't! How wacky! They can't be a team, they're the hero and villain. This is an order. Aside from that though, for the first time in a mainline Crash game, the devs decided to scrap the idea of stage-by-stage progression and individual levels and turn what was a simple platformer series into a big old open-ended adventure with individual set pieces linked together. Whether or not it worked is what I hope to answer in today's video, but if you've ever gone online in your life and looked at a review of Twinsanity, you'll see that loads of people love the game, and just as many people hate it. But with a pretty unoriginal concept in the first place, and a rather disappointing previous outing, I personally don't hold out too much hope. Can't wait! The game begins when we see Crash's sister Coco playing with a butterfly while Kitty Flasher Cortex hides behind a tree ready to shoot her. Luckily, not with a camera. He sets up Coco for an electric stun, looms over her motionless body, and then we cut to Crash in the middle of doing something with the shoe of a sweaty tourist. Look, I'm an open-minded guy, but Christ the smell. And just when you think the game couldn't get any weirder, this happens.
There's something weird going on in the bay!
What the hell was that?
But before you can question why you bought this video game, you're off. Yay, let's go for a run on the island.
It is I, Aku.
Oh, sorry, no, we have to listen to him first.
Call me thrice, and I shall grant you special powers.
Well, that was very useful. Many thanks. Aside from that, though, you're totally open for the first time to freely explore Crash's home of Insanity Island, and this is worth the price of admission for charm alone. Learn all of the controls, roll a football around, collect a few of the hidden gems in the game with optional challenges, blow up ancient invaluable statues, throw chickens into nitro crates.
Wait a sec! Did I just say you could freely explore Insanity Island?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did!
Not joking, for the first time in a Crash game also, many of the stages in Twinsanity actually allow you to freely run around bigger levels with branching paths to additional challenges. Some of the best parts of the game are tucked away from the linear path the game wants you to go down, and some of the worst parts of the game, like here when you try and get this bomb into the mouth of a tiki statue, but no matter what angle you take or how many times you try, you can never get it in because of this bloody stupid log in the way. Yes, I'm still trying, don't mind me, it's not like I'm a busy young man with a job and a family. Oh, or you could just die, that's always another thing you could do. Right, back at the beginning of the game, let's just get on with the story.
It is I, Aku. My duty is to protect you.
Can't skip it.
You may summon me by breaking open these
Trying,
and I shall grant you.
Yes, in a delightful design choice, Twinsanity not only gives you non-skippable cutscenes quite a lot of the time, but also forces you to relive them if you should ever die before the next checkpoint after that cutscene. Kind of annoying, but that won't stifle my enjoyment of one of the most entertaining tutorials I've ever played.
I'm okay!
If you're going to teach your players to do basic rudimentary things you've probably already figured out, you can at least make a joke out of it. And Twinsanity doesn't only make jokes in the tutorial.
Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped.
Well, that's a shame. You probably should have made it good. It aims to be a funny game, and most of the time it hits the log right on the head. Especially when it makes fun of typical platformer gaming tropes.
My orchard is riddled with greedy worms. If you rid my land of these pests, I'll give you this power crystal.
and in particular the older Crash platformers and how basic some of the enemies were.
I've been doing this for 10 stinking years. Back and forward, and I'm sick of it. Well, I'm not gonna do it no more.
Okay.
This then, surprisingly, leads us straight onto the first boss, but against who?
Good grief. It's you.
And not only do we get to fight Cortex straight away in a relatively okay fight for the first boss, we also get to see the rest of the boss lineup from all the previous games. And you even get a majorly pissed off Polar. Look at that face. Weren't you on my side? What did I ever do to you? Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. After Cortex, we then go into a Phase 2 against Engine in a Mecha Bandicoot suit. And once again, even though easy to dodge the attacks, he does have a few tricks up his sleeve, like delaying how long it takes for the plasma shot to fire that you have to spin back at him. So overall, the boss isn't too bad. But when I say it isn't too bad, what I mean is that it actually managed to hit me one time.
Hang on a bleeding hole. Cortex, if the whole idea was for you to kill Crash in the first place, why the hell did you bother stunning Coco and disguising yourself as her to lure Crash into a trap that definitely wouldn't work? Why didn't you use the put person on fire setting of your gun on Crash right here?
On to the next stage, and it's here we get to play as Cortex. Well, kinda. You get to play everyone's favourite bit from Wrath of Cortex as you roll around in a big ball down loads of ramps and away from explosives, and if that doesn't excite you, then maybe the copious amounts of straddling, choking and spanking will. At this point, you find yourself your first crystal, and after a very brief combat encounter, get introduced to gameplay style number 3, where we grab onto Cortex trying to hold onto the crystal, and have to work around him without the ability to double jump, and use him to spin enemies, head smash into metal crates, and even throw him across the stage so he can reach enemies, gems, and switches that you aren't able to. These parts of the game do come back up later, and I find them halfway decent, I suppose, if only for the fact that basic running and jumping needs a little bit more thought put into it, with Cortex needing throwing all over the place. Plus, it's not a big deal if he falls off the arena, since he teleports right back to you. The same goes if you throw him to another platform and there's nothing for him to interact with. So the pace of the game isn't interrupted by clumsy AI or anything. You're free to experiment with Cortex. But it's at this point in the game, going through these caves, where my game decides to glitch inside out of its own rectum. I fell through a platform here, couldn't get a wheel to spin here, got stuck running in place here, and when Cortex finally left me alone, the frame rate tanked so hard on me I felt like I was watching the Hindenburg disaster.
Crash, what the hell are you doing?
And in my favourite bits of the game, every time I lost a life around this part because of the frame rate, the screen would quickly fade to black and then very suddenly cut back to the last checkpoint with what sounded like someone getting shot off screen.
It's coming. It's gonna happen. You watch, you wait. It's just coming. It's gonna happen.
Oh look, it's Papu Papu! Thanks so much for facing the camera. I've had enough looking at cracks to last me a lifetime. Does this mean that we'll get an epic rematch that rivals Crash Bash? Or Crash what? Well, we'll see very soon. This next part of the game is gameplay style number 4. It involves Cortex being chased around by bees on a set pathway, and he doesn't stop for love nor money, so you need to platform alongside him to promptly activate TNT detonators and wooden switches ahead of time to get him safely across the terrain. It's another really fun part of the game in my opinion, since it isn't really an escort mission. You just need to be able to platform quickly, do the right things ahead of time quickly, and know when to jump on and off pressure points to save yourself and Cortex simultaneously. It's still focused around Crash platforming, so I'm okay with it.
Oh, Crash looks around depending on where you point the right analog stick, that's cute.
Also, the game has to warn you to watch out for those man traps, because I can't mansplain it to you while I'm manspreading.
Am I going too fast for you? I'm really sorry if I am, but I actually can't help it. I mean, we barely played the game for 45 minutes, and already this much stuff has happened, and this is just what Twinsanity is like. So get used to it.
Twinsanity isn't so much a typical Crash game as it is more like Rayman 2, but with asphyxiation and shoe sniffing. Not only are you thrown into one long connected adventure instead of separate stages, but the amount you get tasked with doing and the changes the game brings to you every other stage is reminiscent of that game too, and in my opinion that's not a bad thing as long as you can keep tonally and contextually consistent, which Twinsanity does pretty well, as does Rayman 2. And yeah, I suppose you could say the game is called Twinsanity for the fact you go through a million gameplay styles and there's 2 of you to switch between, but that's not entirely the case. The main villains of this game are the reason the game is called this, and it's here we get introduced to them.
That feels good. I was bursting in there.
They're terrible and easily the worst part of the game.
How are you fools? Before the awesome might of the evil twins.
Bloody Nora, even their names are creatively bankrupt. The Evil Twins?
That's it?
Can you get much more basic than that? Why are they so terrible? Everything about them sucks. Why did you stop there? Why didn't you call them the Foul Brothers? The Bad Relatives? The naughty siblings.
And with that, they're gone as quickly as they were introduced. Thanks, game. We need to get a kidnapped Cortex that throws us into yet another gameplay mechanic, stealth. Which doesn't add anything to the game, honestly. The platforming is the same, but you just need to crouch inside boats and behind reeds before you see these big googly eyes staring down at you. It's brief though, so it's relatively harmless, and luckily after that we get to a part where we have to body slam a worm in order to chase it around an arena across many obstacles and enemies in order to force it upwards towards a totem pole Cortex is stuck on and then bounce on its head to free him. Plus there's even some optional platforming tasks to do around here for some extra goodies, if that so tickles your nipple mouth. Oh wow, now this feels familiar. Yes, we get a classic Crash chase segment. I'm digging this harder than a funeral director. But even though this part of the game is a great time and very nostalgic, it's also the last time you get to see Papu Papu.
Oh. Yes, I know. But don't be too disappointed, guys, because remember that gallery of rogues we saw earlier? That must have been a teaser for all the classic Crash bosses that will come back. I'm sure there'll be more later.
And after this part, where it's impossible to hurt these worms with our own bodies, but Cortex's head works just fine, we bump into the evil twins again.
See you around, losers! Hey, is it lunchtime yet?
Ha 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 ha, he's hungry and that's more important to him than stopping the good guys. That was a joke.
And they leave us alone with a boss level that we've always wanted to fight in every Crash game before now. Two-Facey McForearms, who's so intimidating and dangerous that he even hurts you when he's already dead. After being told from the evil twins that they're going to destroy the entire world, including Crash and Cortex, we reluctantly decide to work together to take them down and head for Cortex's lair in an iceberg somewhere in order to come up with a plan. While we're here, we're treated to another open space with many branching paths to really damn good optional tasks in order to grab more gems, including hidden ones that show the extent of how cleverly placed they'll be in the future. But aside from the optional stuff, we also get some genuinely solid platforming all the way to the top of the iceberg, ending up at what I think is the best slapstick gag in the game.
Fish?
Guessing they want fish. Maybe they do? I don't know.
Joking aside though, this part of the game as a whole is great stuff, and not just because you can throw Cortex into the sea. The gem hunting challenges get way more creative and difficult, and the linear platforming segments, whether it's Crash on his own or including Cortex with the throwing and bashing, expand on what we did at the beginning of the game beautifully, with bottomless pits, moving platforms, enemies in between that you need to think creatively to get around, and plenty more hazards to avoid. And as a bonus, oh my giddy Aunt Fanny, the music is great. Yes, I should probably talk about the soundtrack, shouldn't I? If anything, it's the most memorable part of the game for many people who first played it recently or played it over and over again when it first came out. The soundtrack for the game was composed, arranged, and performed by the a cappella group Spiral Mouth. And what does a cappella mean? It means that everything you hear in the game's music was entirely performed by people's mouths. No instruments, all vocals. And knowing that, it makes the music some of the most entertaining, unique, and complexly woven in any video game since the possibilities for audio effects and loops were endless. If they could make the sound with their mouth, they'd bloody well do it.
You know what they should have called it? Aku Aku Pella.
Unfortunately though, even though I love it to pieces, I can't say it's for everyone. It's an acquired taste to be sure, and in some of the more extreme tracks, you'll either listen to it like this, or think it just sounds like a load of gas.
Okay, Mr. Mouth, thank you so much for coming in, and whenever you're ready, you can start laying the track down. Okay, thanks. That was brilliant. What? What you just did? Perfect.
I was just clearing my throat.
Oh, sorry. Please continue.
Okay.
Got it!
Oh, what?
That's what I needed.
I burped.
How are you this talented?
Look, can we just start this again?
No need, I'm done. What do you think?
That's it?
This level even caps off with a decent early boss fight against Uka Uka, utilising more ways to throw Cortex around. Now this is what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know why when you burn ice, the ice doesn't melt and just falls over, but I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with, though, are these two Johnnies coming back into the game for the sake of 3 minutes, where we effortlessly destroy all their minions, and then figure out we need to head after them. But we need more power crystals to do that. Leading to, well, this.
Crash.
I think we know who missed breakfast because Crash is ready to eat. Oh, wait, okay, that's more like it. Phew, well, I suppose in his head, if there's no hog to hump or bear to bonk, you just gotta ride the nearest scientist, that's fair. And this part of the game of snowboarding at high speeds downhill on Cortex's face is hella fun because of that. You get to do some acrobatics, there's a little chase segment here, Cortex kisses his area goodbye, you try to grab this gem hiding inside some gears, but I swear to God it's absolutely impossible, and you even stumble into an adult club that Cortex runs, eh?
That was real.
And even worse, his mum works there.
What's the rating on this game? 3+.
What?
Mummy, what's that on the telly? Oh, don't worry, darling. That's just Daddy's brothel.
I also really didn't need to know that Dingodile has to use an outhouse, meaning that I'm now beginning to question if he has the pee-pee of a dingo or a crocodile. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, after the Cortex sledging, we head off to Engine's battleship to grab some more power crystals to power that dimensional rift device, and... Ah! Oof. Engine, are you okay? Have you got Ebola? And for some strange reason, this is the first part of the game so far
that completely slows down and makes you feel like a pensioner with arthritis. Come on, Crash, wake up. Do you need me to get you a monster?
Despite that weird issue, though, this is yet another tight and satisfying platforming segment for Crash as you dodge rockets and climb your way up to the top of the battleship where Engine is waiting for you. And where at the beginning of the game he was a little bit easy, even in his giant mech, I mean, he was only the first boss after all, now he's absolutely pathetic, spending most of the time firing rockets that don't ever come close to touching you, throwing TNT very slowly at you that blows up his own platform, and spending the rest of the time standing there like a cardboard cutout wondering what went wrong in his life. Suddenly Entropy and Brio come out! Okay. I mean, I'm not complaining, of course, classic Crash characters and all, and we even get to fight them. But I am complaining because this fight here is probably more pathetic than the Engine one we just had. Does Brio do anything else except bounce towards you even slower than Tiny Tiger in Crash 3? No. And does Tropy do anything more except hit random blocks of ice that you are never ever close to? No. So it's nice to see them, of course, but ultimately it's a little bit shit. Time to move on and get that device powered up to stop the... evil twins, and then Coco appears out of absolutely nowhere and messes everything up. No, don't do that, Coke! Oh, that's just perfect. Now she's incapacitated again and the machine has been broken, meaning we have to go and get Cortex's niece of all people to help us fix it. Poor old Coco, she hasn't been dealt the best hand in this game, has she? I'm just gonna go over to her and see if she's okay. Oh, for pity's sake, not these clowns again. Look, if I wanted to play a game with birds in it that I don't like, I'll just play— Get out of my way! Because here we also get introduced to yet another gameplay style, even if it's a bit brief. We get to play as Cortex on his own. How about that? And he can run, jump, and use his ray gun for rapid fire, charge shots, and AoE jump shots. I mean, he does need to grab ammo to use the gun by running into ammo crates whilst he's stuck falling over and using his head, but it's still cool to play properly as Cortex in a game that's not Crash Bash.
La-di-da-di-da-di-da!
By the way, when he runs out of ammo, his running animation changes from determined to absolutely bricking it, and I think that is a fantastic detail. We cut to black, and all of a sudden we're at Nina's school, ready to whisk her away. Yeah, no cutscene or anything, no transition, we're just there all of a sudden.
And oh no, it's just as slow as Engine's battleship. What the fuck?
Okay, well, aside from the major performance issues here, there are a few more parts of miniature exploration and optional gem hunting, my favourite bit of the game. Moving on to Cortex falling down a hole and us having to go after him. You know what this means, right? Yes, more scenes of running around, dragging Cortex behind us and throwing him around. But then he gets himself stuck in a broken bit of pipe, leading to an actually kinda funny fart gag, which is not something I say very often.
How could things get any worse?
Now we've got some more classic Crash platforming parts here, mixed in with a bit of Cortex rolling, sounds like I'm making a cake. And we need to spin all of these blue vents in order to correct these pipes so that Cortex can be safely flushed through them and activate more platforms for us to progress further on. And honestly, I just find it insane that Sonic couldn't get ball rolling puzzles nailed in 2006, 2 years after Twinsanity, when this game manages to get the controls sorted for rolling things around. Once you start rolling something, you're soft locked onto it until you move away from it or jump, meaning that if you move forward, left or right and then just let go of the analog stick, the ball will stay still. It won't roll away from you unless you jump or move backwards. So all of these parts are not very painful because of that. Anyway, a bit more of that happens and then we're on to Dingodile, baby, who at this point is easily the best boss in the game. It may not be as clever as Crash 3's idea of using his own attacks to destroy his own shield, but I gotta be honest, this is a damn good alternate take on the formula. In fact, I think I might like this fight just as much. Throughout the fight, you have to escape him shooting into the sky, firing in circles around him that you need to jump over or slide under, firing a torrent of flame flames that you have no choice but to run away from, and sometimes does these things while flipping between following you and going off on his own directions and going lower and higher at random points. After a while, you then have to trick him into shooting an air vent, causing a body slam button to appear to put the flames out around him, and then voila, smack him in the face onto the next phase. It's an aggressive and fast-paced fight, and the coolest thing about it is that unlike many other Crash bosses that go through the exact same loop of attack patterns after each life bar is taken down, Dingadal does do the same order of attacks in the fight if you start from the beginning, but never does a set looped pattern of attacks after each life bar goes down, making it much harder to remember what he's about to do and makes the fight way more tense. It's really great stuff, and once we knock him down, we go up on a platform over here and end up back at the schoolyard where Cortex falls down a hole and we need to go after him. Okay, talk about deja vu. I swear to God we've already done this. Yes, we have. We bloody have. The game has repeated itself. Help me. Get me out of here. What? I can't go back? What is this? Even Dingadal comes back. What in the bucket St. Christopher is going on? I know I mentioned the unskippable cutscenes earlier, but this is where they really start becoming a problem. If being forced to sit through them again whenever you die wasn't enough, coupling that with being accidentally stuck replaying the same stage you already just finished 5 minutes ago makes them even more aggravating. And yes, I found out the hard way that you can indeed get yourself stuck in previous stages that you need to recomplete in order to exit just for going the wrong way, which isn't too difficult to do because of the more open approach to how the levels connect together. What I should have done at this point, instead of heading back to where the world started right over here, was actually go through this door that I didn't even realise was shut and I hadn't been inside yet at the beginning of the level. Isn't that special? Once inside this random building, we do a little bit more crash platforming, including doing a little bit more stealth that we haven't had since 3 hours ago, and then do a really enjoyable and difficult part of trying to escape rising acid while avoiding enemies, activating metal crates, and bouncing around nitro and TNT. This was one of my favourite bits in terms of challenging platforming. And then we move on to more Cortex shenanigans with room-to-room segments of enemy wave clearing and chase sequences. At the end of this gauntlet, we then stumble into Nina Cortex, which is when the game decides to completely drop dead as the audio carries on like normal, yet the models themselves move as fast as blocked bows.
Put it there, little lady. I see they need some adjustment. Let me take a look. Okay, young lady, let's see what you've learned.
What the hell is going on?
Do you want another gameplay style now? No? Good, because here's another
gameplay style. We now get to play as Nina for a few minutes, leaping from rooftop to rooftop and wall jumping with this bionic claw device. It's kind of the same stuff you've been doing as Crash, but just replacing the double jump and faster movement with a claw hand that lets you grab onto walls and jump onto other walls. And it's here that I got really curious on the performance issues, because this is the only part of the game where it is this consistently bad. Yeah, there have been a few stuttering issues on the odd occasion, and Engine's battleship wasn't too great with the slowdown, but that was literally it. The Academy of Evil segment of the game is outright unplayably slow for most of it, which then turns what would usually be just an okay part of the game with Nina's more restrictive control style into just plain bad. Cortex is at least different enough with the rapid fire gunning, but with Nina, if the game is going to run this slowly, I'd much rather have the faster movement and double jump that Crash has. The claw grip doesn't add any additional challenge to anything. It's not even as skill heavy as a wall jump. You just press a button to lock onto something, and then jump off and press the button again to lock onto something else. You can't go wrong. This is kind of the same thing I felt with Coco in Wrath of Cortex. I mean, I love the character and it's really cool to play as them, even though Coco's level design in Wrath of Cortex was actually much better than this. And Nina's bionic goth schoolgirl aesthetic is fantastic. Look at the lowercase n on her forehead. That's ingenious. I think I'll do that later with me and my son. But where both of these character stages are far from bad, yes, even Nina's, it's the slowdown that makes it worse, I'd rather just play as Crash at the end of the day. We get some Crash-style sequences at least, including a pretty entertaining chase scene involving running away from a school bus tied to a blimp, and even get a relatively fun boss fight with Cortex against the head of the school, Madame Amberley, where you have to quickly shoot down the organ valve she blows open without getting yourself stuck in between two open ones, and then need to shoot all the flying bells that come towards you before they hit you. It's an okay fight, I don't mind it.
When it comes to the slowdown issue, well, I went on the internet and did a little bit of sleuthing and discovered that it's because I'm actually playing the Xbox version of the game on an Xbox 360, and it causes compatibility issues. Now you might be wondering, why did I do that? Why didn't I play another version of the game? Well, the answer is simple, because this is the closest way I can get to playing the game at 60 FPS as a PAL region person. And also, even if I wanted a choppier frame rate game overall but less slowdown, and recorded from the PS2 version, it would look absolutely dreadful for this video through the composite cables. The game is also notoriously a bitch to emulate as well, and I couldn't get it running on any PC in my house, so there you go. None of the slowdown is the game's fault. I'm pretty sure, but it's still worth mentioning that if you want to play it yourself.
More important matters are afoot though, because Cortex suddenly remembers where the evil twins came from. They were apparently his childhood pets that he accidentally transported to an alternate dimension. And that's it.
What?
You're the worst, so with Nina's help to fix the machine, let's get to that alternate dimension and track them down. But better watch out for Crash's evil twin who just appeared out of nowhere.
Okay, my god, Twinsanity, I understand, I get it. You're supposed to be a little bit crazy and a bit, oh, I'm so random, you'll love me when you get to know me, I'm absolutely hilarious, but you need to slow down a little bit. The amount of new bad guys, new characters, new bosses, new one-off gameplay sequences, this is too much. Nothing has time to simmer. And out of everything that we've seen so far, why include the laziest and most boring possible stereotype you could have done this late into the game? I mean, look, fake crashes in the other games, I get that, but first of all, he's so ridiculous and a bonus character that can't be taken seriously anyway, and secondly, he's based off of a Japanese bootleg toy Crash from the mid-90s, but Evil Crash, an evil twin brother of Crash that's part of the story and literally just called Evil Crash? I mean, come on, guys. Oh, now what? Who's at the door?
Hello, Caddy.
Oh no, it's my evil twin brother, Baddie.
I hear you don't like the evil twin trope, so I'm here to fight you.
No. Where did he go? Oh, he's still there. Anyway, after that totally out of nowhere scene, Nina then gets kidnapped by Evil Crash and we have to go after her, which is followed up by my favourite line in the entire game.
My daughter, niece!
And because Cortex is bent over a railing, once again, Crash gets a little bit too hungry for his fight today.
3+, guys. 3+. Toddlers in the UK are hardcore.
Hooray, hooray. It's another sliding section. And compared to the last one, this one is actually pretty damn tricky. Not because you're chasing Evil Crash, he doesn't actually get in the way at all, but because of the absurd amount of explosives strewn around the place. It makes it engaging though, it's not a bad thing. And combined with the ludicrous speeds you reach, this is a gameplay section I really do enjoy. I wish that there were box gems to get or something, so that I would have an extra reason to try a bit harder to aim where I'm going, but you know, whatever. Back on dry land, we then partake in another escorting chase mission with Evil Crash going after Cortex on another level to you, which is more of the same stuff as we had before, but with more trick switches that you need to leave alone, otherwise you'll kill Cortex, and more time sequences that you need to get right. I never thought I'd say escorting was fun, but there you go, this is pretty fun. After which, Cortex buggers off towards the other end of the island so we can—
If Cortex can do that whenever he wants, then why is this game built around dragging Cortex behind you?
It's final stage time, boys! And oh man, did they knock it out of the park. Well, kind of. The platforming itself is good stuff, it's unfortunately just a little visually stale and metallic. You're given some more great Crash segments with even more bits and pieces added on from previous levels. You've got a few ball rolling puzzles to open doors where sliding them up raised platforms becomes compulsory, disappearing platforms not allowing you to dawdle anywhere, disappearing platforms mixed with moving electric fences, and in the main gimmick for the stage, Simon Says starred on and off platforms that get more complicated and trick you into paying attention to the order of the colours by making you jump in multiple directions over bottomless pits instead of making it simple and forcing you into a straight line. It's never as simple as jumping from one platform to the next, and that's really appreciated.
Suddenly Entropy Engine and Brio come back!
Huh? Okay, I think the game has officially lost it. None of this makes any sense at all. We just beat all of you guys. And yet somehow they still managed to reach the Evil Twins treasure trove before you did. Were you on the same ship as us? Did you go through the dimensional portal? How did you get past all of that? Oh, I don't care anymore. But hey, look who's here to get their gems back. Oh, I have a great idea. Let's make a game together, it'll be brilliant. Off to the final boss we go, and my personal pick for the worst part of the whole damn game. What a way to end.
This was years ago. I really don't remember enough of it to comment. What I do remember is that this was just a really cool fight and a nice way to cap off Crash's arguably wackiest adventure.
Sure, you get to take down the evil twins as Cortex, Crash, and Nina, but each of these boss battle phases don't utilise any of what the characters do in any vaguely interesting way. To start with, I lost countless lives as Nina at the beginning of the fight because the grapple hook absolutely refused to work half the time. Look, what am I doing wrong? The prompt is green, the grapple comes out, why do I keep missing it? Even better, every time I fell to the bottom and got mullered by the army waiting for me below, I was stuck into watching another unskippable cutscene at the beginning of the fight. If by some miracle the grapple example works for you, Phase 2 is with Cortex running in one direction for what feels like 4 hours, spamming the shoot button towards 2 individual targets for roughly 500,600 bullets whenever you aren't being shot at yourself. And the final segment, which does let you control Crash inside the Mecha Bandicoot. Sounds cool and everything, but all you do is run once again in one direction until you're safe to shoot the boss, except there's now a shield with gaps in it. The horror! By the way, mess up at any point of this fight and you have to start at the very beginning of the tedium, along with the unskippable cutscene. Cortex, I'm starting to get sick of looking at you wetting. If all goes well, though, you'll suddenly just win, causing the evil twins to immediately appear in front of evil Crash. Oh yes, he was a character in this video game. The birds get eaten, thank God, and Cortex finally gives into the charade of needing to work with his arch-nemesis to save his own skin, and tries getting rid of Crash to the alternate dimension once and for all. Obviously, as it always does, this goes completely wrong, causing Cortex to shrink in a pretty funny switch-around callback to the huge adventure on GBA, and get stuck in Crash's brain, being forced to watch an army of bandicoots doing, oh, lovely, the Crash dance. Okay, this is a pretty satisfying ending, to be fair, and an appropriate conclusion to the absolutely nuts adventure that you just embarked on.
But was the nutsness of the adventure worth it at the end of the day? Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoy it quite a lot. I enjoyed it as much as a kid as I do nowadays, but I can completely understand why some people can't stand it. And the difficult thing about Twinsanity is that you can't really talk about it in a traditional review context, because Twinsanity is just insane.
Think of how many things you go through in the first hour alone. Exploration, branching paths from linear segments, classic Crash run jumping and spinning, bosses, a singular rolling ball part that never appears in the game again, Cortex dragging and throwing, stealth, escorting, chase scenes. And that's not including the new characters and new control styles to get the hang of. Then there's all the other mechanics on top of the level by level platforming that never get expanded on because of all the hundreds of things it tries to do, like with breaking boxes for instance. What was once a fundamentally satisfying and vital core of the previous games, where the main lump of challenge comes from so that you can grab box gems, which unlocks other parts of other stages to grab even more gems, now have absolutely no bearing on anything within the game itself, or the gems, which is a huge shame, since some of my favourite moments of Twinsanity involve going after the gems in some of the hardest and more creative platforming moments. But the feeling of needing to conquer the additional challenge for the extra reward doesn't factor in at all in Twinsanity. They even went as far as to not let you tank your way through explosive crates to make the challenges a joke, even if you have Aku Aku protecting you, so clearly the effort went into these parts. They wanted you to play them in their own way, but it doesn't mean anything aside from unlocking concept art and videos, which at the time I'm sure were very cool, but now you can just look it up online. And you also get a really unfunny 100% secret ending that lasts 1 minute and 10 seconds. For any other optional part of the game, especially the box breaking, well, there's lots of lives hidden within the mini challenge segments, and most of the time they involve you having to break other boxes to get to them. But most of the time the reward of the singular life isn't worth the risk, since getting that individual life will more often than not cause you to lose a life trying to get it. Combine that with the lack of a box gem and no reason for you to try hitting all the boxes in the first place, and there's just no point going after any boxes for anything. And so, while you're busy checking in online for all the unlockables that you missed, you'll also discover that the reason Twinsanity feels so haphazard and rushed in most places is because it's actually partly an unfinished game. There are full-on levels, voice clips, animations, characters, and codes still hidden in the game that you can discover online. And this makes me feel as though Vivendi Games and Sierra Entertainment, who published this game, wanted to get this out as soon as possible to cross-promote with Spyro: A Hero's Tale, another game they were publishing, and make up for the losses that Wrath of Cortex left the companies with. A bit more time and focus with more consistent gameplay sections, more complex bosses, characters having reasons to exist, and less jumping all over the place with separate plot threads that make you totally forget that these two are supposed to be the main villains, and this could have been amazing.
With all that considered, even though I personally still really enjoy Twinsanity for the hot mess that it is, especially more than Wrath of Cortex, despite all the new directions and mechanics this game takes, as a Crash game in its entirety, it does feel lesser in so many places, even though it nails a lot of what it sets out to do.
I mean, even for 2004, these visuals, man, the game looks outright terrific in so many places. They spared no expense here, and you can see where the general idea was heading in so many areas. There is completeness, but as a Crash game and how it makes you feel to actually play, there's so many cut corners and U-turns, not just in the narrative, but in the game as a whole. Bouncy crates don't show any Wumpa Fruit coming out, and don't make any noises aside from the standard metal crate bounce noises. The slide jump is absolutely pathetic, since it isn't high, isn't long, locks you into a jump arc, and isn't useful at a single point in the game. If a surface isn't part of the environment, you will not get a shadow to show you where you'll land, especially annoying around any kind of box bouncing. Tons of sound effects appear to be outright missing. There's a few death animations present, but most of the time when you lose a life, the game silently cuts to black before throwing you unceremoniously back at the checkpoint like you just changed the TV channel. Uka Uka as the spirit mask for Cortex and Nina is a lovely detail, but he has exactly the same noises as Aku Aku. Slide-only enemies appear a grand total of once in the whole game, and that's in the tutorial. And speaking of, there are constant tutorial boxes placed everywhere throughout the game, even towards the ending, taking any element of brief puzzle solving or obvious gratifying discovery out of the window. You also want to see the invincibility state for Aku Aku when you get 3 crates of him? Yes, this is it, no music or anything, and actually, you don't get any invincibility either, since explosives still harm you. Only enemies cannot harm you, so why not just have a hit point system? And how about the bosses? And no, I'm not talking about the evil twins again. As main antagonists for this game, they are some of the worst I've ever seen. They're not intimidating, not memorable, not funny, they're nothing characters, and all the bosses they're a part of are pretty bloody terrible. Why not just scrap them entirely and replace them with another character, because there's constant teasing and cameos from the previous game's bosses that never amount to anything. Even when we did get to fight the few that were featured in the game, aside from Dingadar, the fights with them are all pretty terrible as well, because they were spending too much time focusing on everything else that was kinda mediocre. Why couldn't they just shift the focus on the good stuff that they already had and work on top of it?
I think as a whole, Twinsanity executes the idea of a long, old Crash Bandicoot adventure pretty damn solidly, especially considering all the new control styles, and even given the new control styles, it all controls really well too, something that Wrath of Cortex really didn't seem to get. You just need to be okay with the fact that what made Crash Bandicoot as a series so satisfying and stand out in the first place has been a little bit replaced with like this comedic buddy cop adventure game, and yeah, I don't hate it. Don't particularly love it either. I really, really enjoy the game, actually. But I do think it's a little bit too scattered and lost in its own ambitions to be considered a true Crash Bandicoot classic.
I know what he's doing. Yeah.
Twinsanity and beyond!
Please!
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching today's video. There will be outtakes at the end of this video, so please stay tuned for that. But first of all, I just want to thank you again for staying until the end of this video, because you see the time. I know I sound like a broken record at this. Nitpicker01 on YouTube, Joshua Roberts, Chris NSF92, I'm really sorry dude, I'd love to say your username, but I think I would get demonetized just from that alone, and Alex Van Kirk, thank you so much every single one of you amazing people.
I heard you don't like the... No, that's not the word.
Suddenly entropy and...
But don't be too disappointed, because remember that massive gallery of
Suddenly entropy and...
That sounded so sad. Oh.
I don't... Oh, no.
Suddenly entropy embryo and
Gingivitis.
Suddenly entropy and
Jesus. Yeah, it's like a tongue twister, dude. Can't do it. Yeah, so man, that's messed up. Like you can't. There's unskippable cutscenes. You and Cortex have to work together, and God, that ending, man. Like that's kind of horrific to be shrunken down and be stuck in somebody's brain. Forever have to see Crash do that dance over and over. Oh God, that's nightmare fuel. Anyway, yeah, that's my reaction to Old Crash Twinsanity by Caddicarus. Yeah, can see why some people might like it, some people might not like it, but at the end of the day, you know, it's your choice, you know, if you like the game or not, you know. Anyway, that's it. Everyone take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next one.